So we're not just operating from the head up. So we're really kind of incorporating the whole person. And I think when I think about the culture that as an administrator, as a leader, it's the same with the staff. So we try to help our staff bring their whole selves to work.
Are there any adaptive learning tools that you're also using to support personalized learning at Helix?
We also really try to understand what are their goals? What's their path? We try to create pathways for them to grow as professionals, to grow their careers.
What I'm hearing right now is that consciousness in choosing the kind of professional development that can actually enhance and retain the members of your school, or at least the staff of your school, which is a wonderful space because you feel seen as well.
That mission in front of you, when you see these, they're such beautiful children. And when you see them come in front of you, it's very easy to remember your why. I know a lot of people in the tech world like to talk about your why. It's very easy to remember your why.
What are the pros and cons of giving homework? And if so, what is the balance for our students, particularly our neurodivergent learners? Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to the TomoClub Podcast. Today we're thrilled to welcome Deanna Wylie-Mayer, Executive Director and Head of School at the Helix School in San Rafael, California. Deanna leads a certified non-public school serving autistic learners aged 5 to 22, overseeing academics, therapy-integrated programming, staff management, and community partnerships. Her work emphasizes individualized, sensory-informed, and relationship-centered learning combined with a strong focus on staff development, fundraising, and advancing public-non-public school collaborations. Now, that's a lot that you've been doing, right, Deanna? And thank you for joining us at TomoClub. I'm Chelsea Dean, and I'm going to be the host today. We're talking about supporting staff and improving collaboration, where we're constantly thinking about how do we retain our staff members, especially in special education, and talking more about public, non-public school partnerships. I would love to start with a discussion on your journey and reflect on how you joined education, what are those reasons, and are they still relevant in this day and age?
Sure. So I've been in education really my whole career, 35 plus years, and I started in the private school, independent school sector, primarily with neurotypical learners. And I was an administrator for most of that time, both here and internationally. And about 5 years ago, I was looking for a new opportunity after I'd moved to the Bay Area. And I met Marjorie McMorris, who is the founder of the Helix School. And she founded the school because of her own son. And she was really trying to find a place for who would really understand her son and who would help him reach his fullest potential. He is on the autism spectrum. And we really just connected. And I have a special needs sister myself. And she was older than I and really didn't, back in those days, have any of those kinds of opportunities available to her. I've always been somebody that's very mission driven, purpose driven in my work. And I think for me, meeting her and knowing that I kind of see this as my kind of my denouement of my career. And I thought, wow, what an opportunity to take my career in education and administration and apply it in a place where the work is so powerful and important, and meet these families who, for many of them, they describe it as kind of their last stop. They've just tried everything for their kiddos. And so it's been a really, really powerful experience for me.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Diana. I think what I'm also hearing is when you talk about your work being mission driven, I think it speaks a lot with where you are currently as well, right? Or at least what you aim to do as an educator and as a leader in this field. especially when you talk about the mission and also trying to resonate it with the experiences that you've had and you wished that your sister also had, right? I
For
would,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, and I would love to know a little bit more about what is this sort of mission that you have worked towards, right? And I see that it is more impact driven. You would want to see impact right away. But I would love to know more about Helix as well. And you talk about Helix, which also has a very mission driven environment. As a leader, how do you build and maintain a culture that is still driven with this sort of impact mindset?
Yeah. So at Helix, we talk a lot about what we call the Helix way. And it's very much for the students, it's about regulation first. So we understand that nobody really, it's not even about being special needs. You can't learn if you're not regulated.
Yeah.
So we talk about regulation first. And then we talk about collaboration and just sort of this whole integrated experience. So we're not just operating from the head up. So we're really kind of incorporating the whole person. And I think when I think about the culture that as an administrator, as a leader, it's the same with the staff. So we try to help our staff bring their whole selves to work. Um, Obviously, there are times when we have to leave things at the door and come and do our jobs, but we also really try to understand like what are their goals, what's their path. We try to create pathways for them to grow as professionals, to grow their careers, to if they have we have credential programs, we have lots of professional development, things like that to help them understand that whether you are a paraprofessional or a clinician or a teacher or whomever you are working there, you're a mission critical part of this team. And for example, last night we had our back to school night, and everyone was there, whether it was the person who is our building manager or our finance person or our aides, and all of them were there. And because everyone is a part of that team that helps support the mission of the school, and I think that's part of how we create that culture.
Right. I mean, for so many teachers and so many staff members to actually feel like a unit, how do you do that? Like, what is something uh, that has been a driving force for for your staff particularly? How do you build that sort of mindset for them or with them?
Yeah. I mean, it's a balance. There's that phrase of um, to whom much has been given, much is expected. So you're always trying. I mean, there's a reality. I mean, it's a business, so we try. I mean, we're a small school. We're really a startup school. We're only 10 years old. So we are still in many ways in our early stages. So we do our very best to pay as well as we possibly can. And I do think we're pretty competitive in that regard. We're not the highest, but we're as high as we can be for who we are. And so we do our very best in that regard. But at the same time, I think there's a certain kind of pride and respect that comes when you also expect a lot from people, that there's a certain way that we show up to work, and we all really, I think, to the person, everybody knows that we're showing up for these children, and that's really what we're keeping front and center all the time. And it's very hard when in a way, I'll flip it. It's very easy to keep that mission in front of you when you see they're such beautiful children. And when you see them come in front of you, it's very easy to remember your why. I know a lot of people in like the tech world like to talk about your why. It's very easy to remember your why when they're like sort of bright shining faces are right in front of you. So, but we also sort of uh, there's a big expectation and a big responsibility that comes from that. And I think that there's a pride that comes when you feel like you're a part of that. And so I think for people feeling like they're a part, money matters, obviously, especially here in the Bay Area. We have to. We
Yeah.
have to help people survive. But we all know that money's not everything, and people really do want to feel like they're a part of something important. And I think when our staff feels like they're literally changing lives, um, it it's what brings them back to work.
And and what I'm hearing right now is taking care of the hygiene factors, at least over here, helps you at least work on the motivating factors. So you're not constantly looking at, okay, uh, a teacher's getting burnt out because they're not even being maintained here, or at least you're not giving them that sort of security here, right? And at least you have some sort of motivating factors that you can focus on because at least the hygiene factors are met, right? For their
Right.
motivation into this job. So just, I mean, it's wonderful when you say that the teachers or at least the staff is also very uh, is thinking from a very student centered perspective, right? That the student needs to grow or the student we're here to make a difference. How do you bring about like sustainable changes, especially with teachers? Because we've come to understand that teacher burnout is a huge problem right now, right? Or at least a huge point of concern that a lot of school leaders are also working towards, right? How do you, as a school leader, work through this?
Right. I mean, it's real. And finding, we still, even with everything I just described, we still struggle with turnover. We still struggle with particularly teachers. I mean, we have also, because we're a school that has, we have OTs on staff, we have speech therapists on staff, we have counselors on staff, we have teachers on staff, and they're all part of the team. So, as our aides. So, um, and even though we're doing our best, we still struggle with it. And finding new staff when staff decide to go to another field, or sometimes they just leave for the reasons people leave, like they're moving or something.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is because of burnout. Then I don't know. I mean, I think I'm not going to pretend I have the answer, but I will say, like, when I've been going to education conferences, one of the things that I have been trying to be really vocal about is it is a question that the education community really has to start to look at very seriously and in very creative ways. Because the truth is, so if you look at things like the tech world, for example, they have things like 4-day work weeks, or being able to work from home at least part of the week, or things like that. All things that are very hard to figure out how to offer in our field. I imagine it's not different from the health field or something like that. But I think we're going to have to start getting creative about how we look at that, because that is what we're up against.
Right.
And if we just keep going, well, we can't do that because we're teachers, it's it's going to break.
Yeah.
Because at some point people are going to say, okay, but I can't keep doing that.
Yeah.
So um, that's where I think the idea of kind of thinking about technology and
Yeah.
how technology can support us
Mhm.
um, is really an interesting question. And I would love to be continuing to be a part of that conversation, because I do think that's part of the solution. It's not all of the solution, but um, because even in the midst of everything I just described, the struggle is real. It's we haven't cracked the nut.
Yeah. Right. But regardless, right, it is something that you are working towards, right? And it is constantly something that you're thinking about in terms of retaining the staff in order to feel like they belong there and also to make impact or at least create impact in the lives of students.
Absolutely. And
Right.
that's the foundation. You have to do that. You need to pay them as much as you possibly can. You need to make them feel like the work they're doing,
Yeah.
you need not make them feel like, remind them that the work they're doing is really so important. It's some of the most important work that exists. And then the rest of the work is going to be a lot more creative. And I think we haven't quite figured out what that's going to be yet.
Right. Right. So if we could brainstorm really quickly, what would be one strategy that you might want to pick up, say, from a corporate setup and bring about into your school?
Well, one thing that we're always talking about is could we figure out a way to do a 4-day work week?
Hmm.
Could we figure out, because I think that would be really attractive to people. So it's a conversation that we keep sort of playing with. So I don't know, maybe we'll be one of the first schools to offer that. We're not a 4-day school week,
Got it.
because we know that students need to be in school 5 days, but can we create teams or something like that so that teachers or staff have the option to opt into a 4-day option. So that's probably the number one thing I get asked about is that.
That's
Because of course within a teaching schedule it's not about time off. We get reasonable time off, but it's the it's the 5-day work week can be pretty challenging.
yeah, right. And it's a lot of work, right? Even
A
though,
lot of work.
okay, we're going in for a few hours. When we say few hours, we're still giving in about 6 to 7 hours in school, right? But the amount of effort it takes within those 7 hours, where you're literally working, I think, twice as much as a regular person because you're constantly interacting with students. There's so much of mental bandwidth required to be in that classroom. I think I completely resonate with you when I think about, okay, maybe a 4 days week might be very helpful for teachers. And what I've also seen is that a lot of teachers also opt in for additional work, right? Some sort of freelancing work or some sort of um, something that can help them further, right? And when I say help them,
Right.
thinking about more financially, right?
Yeah.
So, and we do understand that because, again, they need to sustain themselves as well, right? And how do you
Right.
look at that particular situation if you were to see, or at least uh, if you were to have your staff also work in different setups, what would be your thoughts? What are your thoughts right now? And how do you think it impacts or does not impact retention?
That some of them need to have extra work.
Yeah.
Um, well, it's not something that my staff talk to me a lot about. So I think that, I mean, I would imagine what they do talk to me about is that it doesn't end after 6 or 7 hours, that they're going home and then because they are on all day long, then they're going home and doing the work that they can't do while they're at school. So they're prepping for the next day, or they're reviewing papers, or they're um, all of that. So I think that's the other thing to remember is that their work day doesn't end just because the school day ended.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, so I think they talk to me more about that than they do about having to go have another job. The people who are most impacted by that, I would say, are the hourly staff, which is our aides.
Sorry.
So they are the ones that I think are the ones that go out and have to have other jobs. And what the way it impacts them is exhaustion and just yeah, total burnout.
Yeah.
So
Right. So you mentioned about technology, right? Like you said that maybe we need to start leveraging technology in some form or the other, especially when it comes to working with teachers or the teachers working in the school premises. What are your thoughts on that? And how do you balance technology integration with maintaining your school's relationship centered, sensory informed approach?
yeah, I mean, technology should always be in support of, not, it shouldn't, I mean, it should be supporting the relationship, supporting the work, not necessarily leading the work. But if it can save time, for example, if it can save time in lesson planning, if it can save time in report writing, if it can save time in, I think of technology as a thought partner. So if you can use it as that, and we also have to be very careful. And I think we're just sort of starting to figure some of this out because of FERPA and because we're using student data, et cetera. We have to be careful how we're using technology. But helping staff brainstorm lesson ideas and things like that, the kinds of things um, that maybe you might have had to get 4 or 5 people in a room for an hour to brainstorm something, and then somebody would have to write it out, and et cetera, et cetera. Like you might be able to do that with Chat GPT in 12 seconds, and then start iterating on it. So I think that using it as a thought partner, as a jumping off point, it's never going to replace the human.
Right.
And when we use it, like we're using it, and this sort of, I know one of the other questions you were wondering about was how we partner. We partner with an organization called Pacific Prep, which is an online teaching program, and they do one-to-one education. So because we're a small school, some of our students are in a diploma track program and they require having certain subjects,
Right.
but we're a very small school. And so we partner with this organization, and they have specific teachers come in and teaching specific math classes or specific science classes, et cetera. And it's done online. So that's an example of technology being used. They
Yeah.
might even be doing a lab over the computer, but there's teachers and aides there supporting the students while that's happening. Like that wouldn't have happened 5 years ago in our space. So these students are getting, I think, more access to education, a more broad access to education than they would have gotten prior to that.
Right. And I think this sort of collaboration with this Fit Prep also still helps you in deepening your vision for the school, right? In terms of giving the students the best that you can give and really helping them towards their goals more than your own goals, or at least the school's own,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Which is beautiful because I think sometimes we do get lost in uh, maintaining the school's vision and trying to achieve those goals and those numbers, that we often forget that maybe collaborating or creating community that can further a child's growth can be more efficient and more effective rather.
Mhm.
So just building off of that, actually, uh, we understand that you also work very, at least the school works very closely with families and community partners also, right? So how do you foster these meaningful collaborations, which again enhance student outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, some of it's just trial and error. Like we tried last year a partnership with School of Rock, which is a pretty popular franchise teaching music. Um, and again, because we're a small school, we don't have all of the amenities that maybe a big public school might have. So they had teachers come in and do some music teaching. So and we happen to have a School of Rock in our neighborhood. So we partnered with them for the year. So that's one of the things that we do is we just reach out to people in our area and say, hey, we're this school in the area. Would you be interested in working with us? So we do things like that. We With our parents, that's just baked into our mission. One of the really most beautiful things that we do is we once a week we do this thing called Teach the Staff,
Okay.
and a parent comes in and teaches. All the staff gather and they teach us about their child. So
Right.
it's only 20 minutes, but they just tell us about their child, and here's who they are, and here's some do's and don'ts, and here's their history. And we always, even students that we've had with us for years, we always learn something, and it's
Mm.
an opportunity for staff to say, well, sometimes, Joey does this, and when I try that, it doesn't always work. And do you have any suggestions? And it's an opportunity to have a it really makes often parents will come in and go, I cannot believe I'm getting to do this. So but we feel the same way, like that it's so like who could better teach us about this person than them. So and frequently we'll record, if they allow us, we record them and then we share them out with the community, and then other parents can also watch it, so that they also, it builds community amongst themselves too. So yeah, we're very big on that, like just trying to help people not feel isolated, and also just feel like this is a team effort. So
That's absolutely wonderful, Deanna. I think that's such a great idea as well. Especially, I'm still trying to think how it might work with a bigger school with a lot of teachers and a lot of kids also in the classroom. I'm wondering if it can still be done classroom by classroom, right? Like you already
I'm
have,
sure it could.
yeah,
And again, it could be 10 minutes. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be, block out an hour.
ex-
Um, it's at the start of our day. The parent has just dropped their child off and they come up and we all gather, and it's awesome. It's one of our favorite things that we do.
I mean, to think of how you're engaging stakeholders who matter. I think that's the voice that you need, right, for that child's growth. Because as educators, we're seeing them in the classroom, we're seeing them in terms of like papers, we're getting assessments done. When I talk about assessments, I'm also talking about psychometric assessments being done. All of those things, we have IEPs ready. But what about what's happening at home? What is something that maybe needs some extra attention or observation, right? That's beautiful. I think uh, it takes me back to my days as a teacher, and it's so wonderful because I absolutely love the parents who used to come and just keep talking about their kids, and just to see it reflect in the classroom and see how they're able to mold their ways because of the way I respond, because I know them now. I think
Right. Totally.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Or,
wonderful.
they have a sibling, or, they have a cat named Frankie, and you didn't know that before. And, things like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So just towards the end of it, I have a few, like a couple of questions. This is more around your staff, right? So when we talk about professional development, that's something that you also brought up about how you constantly try to have credential programs for the staff. So how do you structure professional development for the staff? So particularly to ensure their fidelity in your therapeutic and academic programs. So are there also opportunities to scale and formalize these initiatives further?
Yeah, it's challenging because we're limited in how we have a certain number of days we need to have of school days, and it's challenging to fit in professional development, but we do our best. One of the things we're doing this year is we're starting an RBT program, which is for our aides. And so what we always do when we're starting a new program is we start very small, and pilot it with people who are the most interested, and just see how it goes. So it's a program where they'll take a course, and then we have a behavioral, a BCBA coming in to do, it's just the whole thing, everything they need to become an RBT. And we're funding it. So that's one way that we are investing in our aides and saying, hey, you matter to us, and this is a credential that you'll get to carry forward. It obviously benefits us too, but it's an investment in you and your career. So we'll start right now. We're starting with 3, and as that hopefully has success, then we'll keep building on that. With our teachers, sometimes we have exceptional people who want to go on to become special ed teachers, and so we can't fund an entire special ed credential, but we do give scholarships toward them getting their special ed credential. So we do kind of, and that benefits us as well, because if we can grow special ed teachers from within our own staff, then that helps us stay staffed.
Yeah.
So
It's amazing. I think when I think of it, I think most schools are bogged with this uh, pressure of getting certain credentials met, or at least their behavioral, sorry, their professional development hours met for the entire year. So with that pressure, they're constantly thinking about, okay, what do I do? What do I do? Let's just get it done with. But I think what I'm hearing, not by everyone, but we have seen that happening as well. But what I'm hearing right now is that consciousness in choosing the kind of professional development that can actually enhance and retain the members of your school, or at least the staff of your school, which is a wonderful space because you feel seen as well. You feel
Yeah,
seen and you feel heard and you feel acknowledged for or validated for the work that you're doing as well. Right?
right.
Which is beautiful. And I think towards the end of it, are there any adaptive learning tools that you're also using to support personalized learning at Helix?
Oh, I'm probably not the best. Yes.
Mhm.
And I wish I had one of my clinicians here to answer all those questions. But yes, we use a lot of adaptive tools,
Awesome.
especially for some of our less verbal students. There's plenty of students that have, they call them talkers, and
Yeah.
they're beautiful. I mean, and to have a student who would come in and who would be so frustrated because they couldn't communicate to us. I don't love saying like helping students find their voice, because they have their voice. It's
Yeah.
having helping students share their voice. So helping them with a tool that helps them tell us what they already know that they want to say. So yeah, we have students who have learned how to master those tools, and so have gone from being frustrated to being able to share with us what they need to say, in various ways. So not every student wants to use a talker, so our staff is incredible at figuring out what works for each student. And we have students who still are a little bit old school, and they like to use a whiteboard, and they walk around with a whiteboard, and they will just write out what they want to say. So, and if that's what works for them, then that's what we do. So,
Right. That's amazing. And I think that was about it when you really think about how you're supporting your staff, especially to retain them, particularly in the special ed field, because we understand that the burnout rates are high, right? We also understand that individuals do drop off after a year, maybe even half a year. We've seen that becoming a trend year over year. But meeting hygiene factors, and I think that is something that I'm definitely taking back. Of course, not everyone has that sort of not the ability, but at least the bandwidth to do that, whether financially or otherwise. But overall, having the hygiene factors met gives you, as a school leader, at least the space to constantly motivate them and constantly think about ways or uh, strategies to introduce motivating factors, or at least things like, as you mentioned, getting them getting their credentials, or uh, giving them professional training towards certifications and giving them scholarships for that. Right? I think that's a wonderful way of supporting learning while also retaining the people that help, and it helps them feel cared for, right? As a
right,
staff, if you were to do that for me, I would love to stay in your school, right? I would have loved to continue there because I know that I'm seen, or at least I know that I'm heard, and I'm recognized for the hours of work that I'm putting in, even beyond the class. So thank you so much, Diana. As a tradition, we have one last question for you. This is from a leader that I interviewed recently, and this is the question for you. And I would love to have your question as well after this one that you would like to ask another school leader. So, what are the pros and cons of giving homework? And if so, what is the balance for our students, particularly our neurodivergent learners?
mm. Well, I think the pro is probably around independence, and um, I think there's something to having families see the work that their students are doing. Um, and I think for our students, that's probably where it ends. I think for our students, the cons, and I do hear this from families, they will sometimes ask, could we please we have an after school program, and sometimes they want them to complete their homework there because they very much just want their students to come home and just be able to enjoy their family time. So I would say that's one of the big cons is that our kids work really hard just to be in school all day. It's very challenging to just do school, and that's a long day. For some of them, it's 7 hours. For some of them, if they stay longer, it could be even longer. And then to come home and have to do like that's a big ask. So I think the big con would be that it's okay to come home and just not do that. And if it's a preferred activity, if it's something you enjoy, then great. But if I think it's fine to come home and have that be a relaxing, positive uptime. So that's
Right.
what I would say. And to be fair, I would say that about neurotypical learners as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And any question that you have for uh, any other school leader whom we can interview, or who will we will be interviewing? Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, because I spent so much of my career in the neurotypical learning environment, I have to say my first 2 years at Helix, I kept feeling like, well, all learners would benefit from so much of what we do. And this concept that that we really talk about a lot about regulation first is so interesting to me. So I guess my question would be, a lot of schools talk about the whole child and addressing the whole child. And I guess my question would be, what do you think your school does to really honor a student's need to be regulated, so that they are able to attend to the learning that is being presented to them?
That's a wonderful question. I can't wait to ask this to another school leader and really delve deep into what is something that they're doing for their students. So thank you so much, Deanna. Thank you for joining in. And it was a pleasure speaking with you. And especially the work that you're doing at Helix and the kind of impact that you're making, not just for the students, but I would say also for your staff members to really feel like a part of a mission and really drive that sort of mindset for them. And I think you've been the one guiding them through this process. I would say you've been an example for them. Right. So thank you so much for the work that you do. And thank you so much for joining us today as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Chelsea. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for tuning in. For more information about TomoClub, visit TomoClub or follow us on our socials. Stay curious, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.